Oh, wait. Let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive into the Model Penal Code, the MPC,
Mm,
and we're looking at its very disciplined rules on the justifiable use of force.
right there.
We're talking about the lines the law draws for law enforcement, crime prevention, and even, special authority figures like parents or guards.
Yep, sections 3.07 and 3.08 specifically.
And the goal here isn't just to summarize these rules. We want to learn how to use them, how a court actually breaks them down element by element so you can walk away from this really understanding the framework.
Exactly. The whole legal framework here really rewards precision. And whenever we look at justifiable force, the core question, it's always subjective.
Subjective how?
It's always, did the actor believe the force was immediately necessary?
Oh,
But, and this is the important part, that belief isn't just floating out there. It's aggressively limited by these objective statutory checks, especially when you get into deadly force. So today, we'll hit the general rule for arrest, then that strict four-part test for deadly force, and then we'll pivot to the rules for people with special authority.
perfect. Let's start right at the beginning. What justifies force for an arrest? What's the fundamental requirement for anyone, officer or civilian, to use force to make an arrest under the MPC?
Okay, so the foundational justification is, it's simple, but it's really powerful. It's in section 3.07, Mil 11. Force is justifiable if the person is making or assisting an arrest, and they believe that force is immediately necessary to complete a lawful arrest.
That belief in necessity.
That belief is the engine of the whole defense.
Okay, so before we jump into deadly force, what non-deadly things have to happen first? What prerequisites need to be met before anyone can use any force during an arrest, according to 3.072A?
There are two hoops you have to jump through first. The first one is all about communication. The actor has to make known the purpose of the arrest.
You have to tell them why they're being arrested.
You do, unless, of course, you believe they already know or it's just impossible to tell them in that moment.
And the second hoop.
The second one is about warrants. If you're acting under a warrant, you have to believe the warrant is valid.
So you're protected even if the warrant turns out to have a defect.
Generally, yes.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you held a good faith belief that it was a good warrant, you're covered.
Okay, now let's get to the high-stakes stuff. This is where it gets really interesting. What are the strict limitations the MPC puts on using deadly force to make an arrest? This is what everyone talks about.
Deadly force is treated like the nuclear option. Section 3.072B gives us a four-part checklist, and deadly force is only justifiable if all four, not three, all four of these elements are met.
Okay, what are they?
First, the arrest has to be for a felony.
Simple enough?
Second, the actor must be a peace officer or someone who is assisting a peace officer.
Okay.
Third, the actor have to believe the force they're using creates no substantial risk of injury to innocent persons.
Ah, there it is.
And fourth, the actor must believe that either the crime itself involved the use or threatened use of deadly force, or R. There's a substantial risk the person will cause death or serious bodily injury if you let them get away.
That third element, the one about protecting innocent people, that sounds like the toughest one. It feels like it changes the whole calculation.
It does. Let's test these four elements with the scenario.
Yeah, let's walk through it like a court would. This is the critical method.
Absolutely.
Let's analyze this hypothetical. First, what are the legally important details? The facts.
Okay, a police officer tries to arrest a man, we'll call him D. He's unarmed. The arrest is for an aggravated burglary, which is a felony, from last week.
Okay.
The officer confronts D in a crowded public market. D turns and runs. The officer fires a warning shot. It misses and hits a fruit stand. He then fires a second shot, killing D.
And what's the key detail about the original crime?
That's critical. During the burglary, D had threatened the victim with a knife. But when the officer confronted him, D was completely unarmed, just fleeing.
Okay, so what's the core legal issue this whole scenario raises?
The issue is pretty clear. Was the police officer justified in using deadly force to arrest D under that four-part test in MPC section 3.072B?
What rule of law did the court apply? Can you state the full rule and break it down into its testable elements for us?
Of course, the court is applying MPC section 3.072B, and the rule has four elements that all have to be satisfied. 1, arrest for a felony. 2, actor is a peace officer. 3, a belief of no substantial risk to innocence. And 4, a belief of prior deadly force use or a substantial risk of future harm.
Got it. Now let's do the step-by-step analysis. How did the court apply the first element, arrest for a felony?
Right, so the sub-issue there is, does aggravated burglary count? The facts tell us it was a felony, so this one's easy. Element 1 is met. It's just a checkbox on the crime severity.
Understood. Now, how about the second element, actor as a peace officer?
It's, again, very straightforward. The sub-issue is the actor's job. The facts say he's a police officer. That fits the rule perfectly. So element 2 is also met. So far, the officer's on solid ground.
Now we get to the tricky part, the safety factor. How did the court handle the requirement of belief of no substantial risk of injury to innocent persons, especially with that crowded market and the stray warning shot?
And this is almost always the fatal element. The sub-rule says the officer must genuinely believe the force creates no substantial risk to bystanders.
And here.
Well, firing a gun in a crowded public market, the location is everything, and then having your first shot go wide and hit a fruit stand, that demonstrates an absolutely intolerable risk.
So even if the officer said he thought it was safe?
It wouldn't matter. The objective facts, the crowd, the missed shot, make that belief totally unreasonable. The law puts the safety of innocent people above catching even a dangerous felon. So this element is not met, period.
I see, but hold on. D used a knife last week. Isn't the officer going to assume he's still a threat, even if he's running away unarmed? Let's analyze that final requirement. Prior deadly force use, or substantial risk of future death, serious bodily injury.
You're hitting on that crucial subjective part of the rule. So the rule here gives you two different paths to satisfy it. Path A is met. The aggravated burglary did involve the threatened use of deadly force, the knife.
So that's enough?
That's enough. Since he's being arrested for a crime that fits the deadly force criteria, element 4 is met. Path B, the risk of future harm, is more debatable since D was just fleeing and unarmed, but the prior crime satisfies the rule on its own.
Okay, so after analyzing all 4 points, and we've got 3 out of 4 elements met, what was the court's final conclusion?
The court has to conclude that the officer's use of deadly force was unjustified.
Even with 3 out of 4?
The justification defense is all or nothing. He met the requirements for the crime's seriousness, his own authority, and the suspect's potential danger. But the failure on element 3, the failure to protect those innocent bystanders, is fatal to the entire defense.
So the MPC policy is basically, you can't make the public less safe just to catch someone.
That's it exactly. It's an incredibly disciplined approach. It forces the officer to put public safety first.
Let's look at some related scenarios then. How does the MPC justify using force to prevent someone from escaping custody?
So generally, section 3.073 says you can use the same amount of force to stop an escape that you could have used to make the arrest in the first place.
So if it was a misdemeanor arrest, no deadly force to stop an escape?
Generally, that's right. But
Yeah.
there's a massive exception.
And this is where it gets really interesting again, the institutional exception.
This is the critical pivot. The MPC carves out this huge policy exception for institutional security. It says a guard or peace officer can use any force, including deadly force, if they believe it's immediately necessary to stop a charged or convicted person from escaping a jail, prison, or other institution.
Okay, let's do the visceral hypothetical on that. A guard sees an inmate who's only in for misdemeanor theft scaling the prison wall. Under this rule, the guard can use deadly force.
That's right. They are justified.
What's the policy reason for allowing such severe force for such a minor original crime?
The justification completely shifts. It's no longer about the severity of the original crime. It's about the absolute necessity of maintaining institutional order and security.
The building itself.
Yes. Once someone is legally confined, any escape attempt is seen as an attack on the entire system of justice. It's chaos. The state is protecting the integrity of the facility, not just punishing that specific crime. The risk of a mass breakout, it warrants this huge preventative power.
That is a fascinating policy choice. Okay, let's shift gears completely. Let's move to MPC Section 3.08. What's the scope of justifiable force for someone with a special responsibility for others? Parents, doctors, that sort of thing.
Right. Section 3.08 recognizes that some roles just inherently require the authority to use force, but it also puts strict limits on it. For parents or guardians, for example, force is justifiable if it's used to safeguard or promote the welfare of the minor. That includes preventing or punishing misconduct.
And what's the bright line rule that stops this from becoming abuse?
The limitation is absolute. The force used must not be designed to cause or known to create a substantial risk of causing death, serious bodily injury, disfigurement, or extreme pain or mental distress.
So reasonable discipline is okay?
Yes, if it's aimed at the child's welfare. But severe, lasting harm or intense suffering is completely forbidden. The law draws a very clear line there.
How does this play out for other roles? What about a doctor, for instance?
So for doctors, Under 3.88, they're justified in using force if it's needed for medical treatment and the patient can't consent. Think of emergency surgery on someone who's unconscious, or restraining a patient having a severe mental health crisis to stop them from hurting themselves.
And teachers.
Teachers, similarly, can use force for reasonable discipline in school, as long as it aligns with the student's welfare and doesn't cross that line into causing severe harm. The common thread for all these roles is that the force has to be necessary for care, safety, or discipline, and always, always proportional.
So we've covered the complex police arrest test, the special power of institutional guards, and the protective limits on parents and professionals. How can we boil all this down into an actionable checklist for any scenario you might face?
Okay, to analyze any use of force scenario under the MPC, you should follow these steps one by one. It's like solving a puzzle.
Let's hear it.
First, identify the actor's role. Is this person a peace officer, a private citizen, a parent, a guard? That tells you right away whether you're in Section 3.07 or 3.08.
Step 1. Find your statute.
Exactly. Step 2. Determine the purpose. Was the force for an arrest,